Yes, hello folks, welcome to the weekly Manchester United podcast. I'm your host as always, Phil Brown, joined with my regular co-host, the excellent Colm. We haven't recorded since before the World Cup, a lot has happened since then. First of all, mate, how was your Christmas, New Year's, all that?
First of all, mate, is that a leather jacket? You're on the bit like Danny Zuko.
Mate,
It's Danny Zuko himself.
considering your moustache the last time we recorded, you
Mate,
saw
it was bad, wasn't
you're loving hanging from a Wendy house, mate. Don't disrespect that.
Do you know what? The birds in America loved it for some reason, so that's why I continued with it. But back home now, so I had to
Tell
had
more
to get
lies
it
in the Tinder
whipped off.
profile.
No, but it's good that we've actually got a bit of a better atmosphere on here now. I used to come on here and couldn't wait to get laid into you. Honestly, it was like that for a while. Wasn't it?
What's changed? Because you just
I know,
started out there slaughtering
Then
me.
it just started. Nah, but good Christmas for yourself.
An insult from you about fashion as a compliment. I met the good Christmas, was up in Big Bear, froze my buttocks off, was great. But enjoyed United, of course, right before the World Cup Garnacho scores. You're sitting there and you're going, don't lose momentum. And there's an old cliche in football, World Cup hangover. Since United have resumed since the World Cup, they haven't conceded a goal. They've won every single game. It's United, you're learning trust, and this feels amazing.
It does, and it feels like a new lease of life for something with United at the moment. And I mean, even tonight's game, like that's a game that over the last couple of years we throw points away there. Getting the job done in easy fashion like we did, a good performance, very little negatives to come out of that game. It's looking positive, and I'm telling you now, we're in a good position right now. We're in a good place, a good position. There's a good feel-good factor about the squad. There's a feel-good factor about the fans. Everything's coming together. Like, especially with this whole Glazer thing, and we will touch on that down the line, and you've, I'm sure, plenty of information on that because I know people are very interested. But with that at the moment, like it seems as if this is a new lease of life as a United fan.
Listen, we've been in moments before where United have looked good. You know, under Solskjaer they were sitting in second. On Mourinho, there was moments during Mourinho's tenure where it looked good, but this feels different because even when United were playing well under Solskjaer, you felt it was a bit one-dimensional. It was based on counter-attack. It was based on moments. You know, we were forever littered with this false possession nonsense, right? But this doesn't feel like that. This feels like a United that can control games, that adjust tempo when they need to, that it's built on solid foundations, a team that has adjustments. And you heard Rashford say something a while ago saying he was in a different headspace. This whole football club's in a different headspace. Everyone. And the irony is, it's the first time in a long time we've had chaos off the field, but we're getting it right on the field. What Ten Hag has done, I mean, when we think about how well United are playing, it's not the only metric with which you judge him by. You take a look at every decision that he's got right. He got the Ronaldo decision perfect. The way he responded to Brentford set the tone for what we're seeing now, right? Not just in terms of the signings, but that doing the run with the players got their instant respect. And since Brentford, what is that, 17 wins in 22 games? That's more points than Guardiola. That is absolutely unbelievable.
I think it's testament to Ten Hag and his squad at the moment with everything going on, because like you look at that team, and we'll go back to the Ronaldo situation where Ronaldo had a bit of a, like, what's the word to use? He had a bit of a stronghold over the team in a sense, and Ten Hag's just completely torn that out. This is a side built on Ten Hag and built on how Ten Hag thinks we should play football and how we play football best. And the best thing about it is everyone's buying into it now. And you look at that squad, and there's very little players you look at and you think he's not giving 100% because everyone's playing for the badge. Everyone's playing to stay in the team. And he showed with Rashford the other day stupid things, missing a meeting. And Luke Shaw, there was an interview after it. I don't know if you've seen it in America, but Luke Shaw said that's been the problem in previous years. He said that there wasn't that accountability in the squad before. And I don't know if that's a go at the other managers, at players, at what. But now we've got it. This is looking good. This is the best we've looked since Sir Alex Ferguson.
I think United in the past have found it difficult to consistently apply discipline, which part of that has been undermined from above because United have prioritised players' commercial value, which has made it difficult to discipline them in the past. There's been special rules created for special people. I mean, the football club had to customise itself for Cristiano Ronaldo because it was commercial value. We was treated completely differently, and it's okay to treat people differently, in my opinion. Like, I think that is, it's very hard when you have 22 players in the dressing room. You can't treat 22 players the same because they're not exactly the same. But you have to consistently apply disciplinary measures the same. Like, Cantona was treated differently, right? Because he was different. There's always been players that have been treated differently. Wayne Rooney was treated differently for a period. But that's all based on their return. And so, and it's totally different reasons. It's not because they're being coddled because they have value that transcends their value on the pitch. Now all of a sudden there's very direct cause and effect for when you step out of line at United, you are going to be disciplined, whether you're a Cristiano Ronaldo, whether you're a Marcus Rashford, or whoever you are. And one of the things that I think you have to respect Ten Hag for is he gives players the opportunity to fail. Right? Ronaldo was given the captaincy 2 weeks before he done that interview. Right? Harry Maguire was given the captaincy, was dropped 2 games after that, and he said to Maguire, "It's yours to lose," and he showed. And I'm not going to put the blame on Maguire. Maguire showed that he wasn't good enough to do what Ten Hag wanted to do. Ten Hag gave him the opportunity to prove. Ten Hag knows exactly what he is. You and I know exactly what he is, right? What he's good at, what he's not good at, what team he can play well in. And I think like Maguire would be good in Everton or something where they sit deep on the edge of their box. Teams that play high lines, Maguire's not the best at that. He had a good World Cup, which I think is great, and I think that a lot of the abuse that's been levelled at him has gone over the top, which is good to see United fans supporting him. But once again, Ten Hag perfectly manages the situation. And when you look at so many of these players, Colm, they're playing the best football of their career. Fred's playing the best football he's ever played at United. Dallow's playing the best football he's ever played at United. Even Wan-Bissaka came in, having not played since Liverpool, and had a couple of really good games, playing for his future, because this is United that players want to stay at now, not want to leave.
You know what, as well, though? The decisions above Ten Hag have also been great. Like the signing of Casemiro, that's our best signing in years. I can't think of a better signing than Casemiro in the past 10 years. I can't. I really can't think of it. I mean, the guy just oozes class. He has everything that we need, and when we needed it as well. I mean, the appointment of Ten Hag, they got it right with that. So, again, and that was something at the time I wasn't too sure about Ten Hag. I think me and you were going back and forward on Poch or Ten Hag and whatever. They got that right. So you have to give credit where it's due. They did. They got that right. They got it right with Casemiro. Whoever's making these decisions. And I mean, again, there's plenty more decisions that we need to see. We need to see a striker in January. I think, obviously, with Anthony out now, I don't know how long he's going to be out for as well. We need another attacking player. I think that's a definite. Do we get one? I don't know, because, again, with this whole takeover talk, is it going to be someone in on loan? Is it going to be someone short-term? I wouldn't mind someone short-term for 6 months just to give us the cover, because we could win a trophy this season. It's not out of the realms of possibility.
I want to think about something for a second. As what we've known, obviously being revealed in the accounts and what have you, this really was the last throw of the dice for United with Ten Hag. Because if Ten Hag didn't get these signings right over the summer, United no longer have the money to fix that. They couldn't afford to get it wrong. And he has come in and not just revitalised the football club, but really saved the football club in a lot of ways. Because imagine you're sitting here in January and you're saying you need 3 or 4 players, right? Just to get close to the top 4. We're sitting saying we need one, a striker. That's unbelievable. That in the space of 6 months, he performed an exorcism on his football club, as I was saying, that took this United team from a team that you loathed, a team that was surrendering in games. It's not just what he's got right on the pitch, it's what he's got right off the pitch. This is a guy that when he came in, his accent was mocked, his body language was mocked, his clothes was mocked, his accent was mocked, right? His language. Oh, this is an individual that walked into a job that, you know, a Manchester United that, as Ranić was saying, conceded goals that nobody else conceded in the Premier League. A United where their set-piece coach was routinely ridiculed. None of these things exist anymore. And I'm talking about an exceptionally well-coached Manchester United. We saw the goal from a corner with Rashford putting the top man at. Who was that against? Was that wasn't Burnley, was it? I can't remember.
It's been that many weeks, I forget who it was.
I've taken that many drugs, my brain doesn't work. So it used to. But
At least you've got the excuse.
But anyway, you're watching the United team that can control tempo in games, that can change games, have individuals that you take a look at that midfield. It's just Casemiro, as brilliant as he is, Christian Eriksen. I mean, Jesus Christ, what a privilege! That first goal, the ball is perfect. The control, everything is about it is magnificent. And the third goal, brilliant. Second goal, brilliant. I mean,
but the thing is like you normally look at teams like this, right? And you normally have a few things you can nitpick. And you can say, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that, we should change this. The only thing I can think in my head that we need is a striker. That's it. There's nothing else bad about this team. We're firing on all cylinders. There's players who didn't look like players that are now looking like players. There's players coming out of their shell now. There's Garnacho, who looks like he could be a special talent if he's, groomed in the right way by Ten Hag, which it looks like he will be. And in terms of what Ten Hag's bringing, like we look at him taking over the reserve team. That's something to me that excites me, because with United in previous years we lost that. Yes, there was managers like Ole who was trying to bring in youth, but he wasn't doing it the right way. Truthfully, if we look at it, this is a guy who's been in that system at Ajax, who's worked through a system, who's got to a point where he has made it for himself to go and get the United job, and now he's bringing all of his ideas to United. It's unbelievable, mate.
Absolutely incredible. And I think I remember Van Gaal's first press conference, and naturally, whenever at that time Van Gaal was considered someone that promoted youth, and he was asked about whether he was going to take charge of the academy and what have you, and he said no, which I thought was a mistake. A mistake that Ten Hag, and I genuinely believe he's consulted with Van Gaal quite a bit on a lot of the problems that United. And I don't think it's a repudiation of the people beneath him, but there has to be at United a functioning under-23 team littered with players that are capable of playing in the first team. If you're not going to sign the top players in the world, you have to. United have only recently started to do that, which is why we have Garnacho. Right, Garnacho is a result of United's renewed focus, which John Murdoch deserves credit for, on their youth team and going out and bringing in players from around the world that are capable of playing in the first team, not just something that's used for marketing, where you have these young academy players that come in. We haven't seen a young academy player come in like Garnacho, in my opinion, and have an impact probably since Rashford. So. Mason Greenwood, Jesus. And I mean, when we look at the forward line, we talk about United needing a striker. In the last year, they've lost Ronaldo, Cavani, and Greenwood. They have to do something, in my opinion, in January. And I'm not really fussed about what's going on at other football clubs. I know Chelsea and all are spending a lot of money, but to me, I know people say that Graham Potter was the wrong choice, but I think Chelsea was the wrong choice for Graham Potter.
Yeah, I agree, definitely.
More than Graham Potter being the wrong choice for Chelsea. I think he chose wrong, because that's a really difficult football club to manage. I doubt Graham Potter has charge over recruitment at that football club. Ten Hag has made sure every problem that previously existed at this football club wasn't tolerated under his management. And I'll tell you something, if Conte was doing this at Spurs and the reverse was happening, we'd be reminded every single week about, and I'm not Antonio Conte, because I think he's a brilliant manager, but we'd be reminded every single week of the fact that United fucked up again by not appointing Eric Ten Hag instead of Conte. Eric Ten Hag is perfect for Manchester United and what they needed. And can you imagine this guy under owners that actually invest in the football club? I mean, even the way he handled Jadon Sancho, even the way he handled the Sancho situation, just absolutely perfect. And I believe this Manchester United team is perfect. If you're struggling mentally, which I believe, or which may be the situation with Jadon Sancho, I don't believe it's about ability. This is a United team that can bring the best out of you emotionally. It's a totally different environment than what they've had before. There's really, for United, this is a team that players want to be a part of, not want to leave.
I think I want to go back to your points first of all before I forget about it on this striker situation, because I want to hear what you think in terms of who do we get? Do we get someone that's going to be a 6 month stopgap? And I mean, I've seen Giroud touted today. People have said about Olivier Giroud. I think he fits the bill perfectly. Someone like Olivier Giroud fits the bill perfectly. 6 months. We need that type of striker. We need that different option. If it's going to be off the bench, if it's going to be starting every week, we need something different up there. He brings it. Short-term deal, and then let's look at it again whenever we do have new owners hopefully in place by the summer. I think that's the smartest way to go about it.
Here's the difficulty with Giroud, in my opinion, and anyone else. You're not getting them on loan for 6 months. Right? We either sign him and give him a contract, which will extend it the next season, because I don't think he's going to come for 6 months, or you don't get him. I think what's more likely, in my opinion, is if Barcelona were to allow Memphis Depay leave on a free, his contract's up in 6 months, they need to cut the wage bill, then I could see that happening. I agree with you that I think Giroud would be perfect, right?
But is Depay not much of the same of what we have, really?
No, I agree. But here's my view on it, Colm. Whatever Right Ten Hag wants, give him. Because
no, 100%.
You know, so if Ten Hag sees Memphis Depay as a central solution, whether I do or not, irrelevant. You know, because every single time he's saying the player, you know, I know people are going to debate the Anthony situation, but I'm going to have some mitigating facts for Anthony. I think people are a bit unfair at times, but I think for the most part, those signings have completely revitalised the football club. In many ways, missing out on De Jong, it would be hard for me to believe that Frankie De Jong would have been better than Casemiro.
No, absolutely not. I mean, Casemiro was the perfect signing, and I think at the time you referred to it, and rightfully so at the time, as a bit of a panic buy. That's what it seemed like.
No, don't put words in my mouth there. Because
I think you did say that.
No, I didn't say that. If you're going to quote me, you have to quote me correctly. It wasn't a panic buy. Listen, what I turned around and said was it was clearly a consequence of what happened to Brentford, right? So clearly you needed panicked after Brentford and changed their focus from a Rabiot. It was obvious that Casemiro was a much better player. I mean, we don't remember, Colm, at that Everton game, we had fans criticising Casemiro, saying he was shite. Go back on Twitter and look, right?
Yeah.
He had a different game that day. He set up a goal, but you give a ball away. There's Casemiro, he's shade, overrated, all this nonsense, right? Because people don't understand the difference. Not everyone, but some people don't understand the difference between a bad player and a bad game, and because of social media amplifying everything into clickbait nonsense, everything has to be the GOAT today. Everything has to be the best ever defender, the best ever in the world. There can't just be average commentary about people because of social media, because everything's designed for attention. So people make their mind up so quickly about players, good, bad, or indifferent. So with Casemiro, it was blatantly obvious he was much better than what United had. It was blatantly obvious he was a much better signing than Rabiot.
Based on that, and obviously what you're saying in terms of making the right decisions, Ten Hag and these signings, what's your best 11 right now at United? If everyone's fit next week. City's next week, so it's a perfect game, right?
I think it picks itself. I think that United's best 11 picks. It's really easy to do that. De Gea, Varane, Martinez centre back, Luke Shaw left back, Dallo right back. The midfield three picked itself. Eriksen, Bruno, Casemiro. The front three, you're talking Rashford, Martial, Anthony probably would be United.
Would you go Anthony ahead of Garnacho? Because for me, I'd go Garnacho. I know I've been critical of Anthony from the minute I came on here, and you thought I was being a bit harsh on him at the beginning. It wasn't that I was being harsh. I just don't know if he has what it takes, and we both we're going back and forward, and I think maybe it will take him a bit of time to settle in to the Premier League. And I know it's a classic statement that people make about these signings all the time, but I do genuinely think he needs time. I mean, it's a big change from the Dutch league. It's a big change from the Dutch league, but Garnacho has something different. Garnacho's exciting.
Garnacho's a brilliant player. He's very, very exciting young player. I would say the fact that I'm leaving out Jadon Sancho would be more of a concern than anything else, because I would maybe even put Garnacho ahead of Sancho at the moment. I think Garnacho, exceptional young player, we have to be fair to him. Consistency, he's going to be inconsistent, as any 18-year-old will be, and he just turned 18. So, magnificent young player. With Anthony, here's the thing. Anthony didn't play for weeks before the World Cup, and he was a sub for Brazil. So he didn't play. He played bit parts in games. Comes back. So really, when you think about it, he hadn't played in 2.5 months, right? At any consistent level. So inevitably, when you're a football player and you haven't played for 2.5 months, you need a few games to get back into your rhythm. He should have scored. Who did I play before Wolves? At Old Trafford. See again, I've forgotten. Who did they play before Wolves? You're supposed to know this stuff.
I know my head's chocolate at the minute. I have everything going on. I can't remember last week, mate.
Here, let me see. Matches. Forest against Forest. Should have scored against Forest. No doubt. Yes, Forest. No doubt. Should have scored against Forest. He didn't play well. But I do like certain people focus on, like De Gea is a perfect example of this. His distribution, and it causes you to overlook someone's strengths. There are very few football players that are perfect, that don't have a weakness that you can focus on. I think he started off really, really well. Wasn't able to keep up momentum, got injured. But for people to be making their minds up about him already is absolutely ridiculous to me. Good, whether you're saying he's perfect for United or whether you're writing him off, it's a perfect example of what we saw under Casemiro. 1 or 2 bad games leads to people turning around and saying he's shite, which is ridiculous to me.
How long is he out for? Is there any idea of? Have we heard that yet? Because I didn't hear anything. I mean, I do want to touch on Wan-Bissaka as well, because that's a massive. Like, me and you talked here, 2 months ago before we finished up before the World Cup, and we were saying he's dead wood, get rid of him, let's get another right back in. I think that again, that's testament to Ten Hag. Like, you look at that player, and he looks like a different guy altogether. Again, this is another player that just looks, and he can rival Dalot for that starting right back spot.
Here's the thing with Wan-Bissaka, right? What we know, he's a good defender, not great going forward. But this is, I think, what would concern me about him is the fact he hasn't really developed at United. But what I would say is, this is a United team that's the opposite of what we had last season. The opposite, what we had last season was a United team that was really easy to look bad in. But this is a United team that's it's set up to look good in, because there are so many options ahead of Wan-Bissaka, where if he's not great going forward, there's players ahead of him that will compensate for that. In the past, because United didn't play as a team, every weakness was amplified, and it looked horrendous. I think also Ten Hag, when we would see players last season get rotated, when they would come in, it was turgid garbage, no matter who played. And now we see players coming in desperate to keep their place, knowing that Ten Hag makes quick decisions about players. Things that we've wanted to see United for a long, long time. That players that were getting played for months and months and months, consistently poor. Now that doesn't happen anymore. And the response that you're getting from those players makes them better players, because it forces them to be better. It forces them to be the best version of themselves. It forces them to be professional. There is no more hiding place for players that are coming in with the wrong attitude. As we've seen with Rashford, we've seen Sancho being sent away to work on himself physically and mentally, which I think is brilliant. Right? I think there's so many things about this that is admirable, that we haven't seen before, that gives me encouragement that it's being built on solid footing.
Let's just briefly talk about Maguire, because is it a case of it's better off for Maguire to go elsewhere?
Yes, 100%.
Is it beneficial for us to get rid of Maguire?
100%.
Because I disagree with it at the minute, because we need more help at centre back. Varane clearly isn't going to be fit every week. We know that. He's always had some sort of issue.
When he's been relatively fit this season.
He has, to be fair to him, but he still had a few games where he's went out, and we thought he was going to be out for a while before the World Cup as well, and he obviously turned it around a bit. But him and Martinez are obviously your starting two. Is it a case that, yes, you get rid of Maguire and we have Casemiro and McTominay there as backup centre halves for the moment? Should we be even talking like that?
Well, here's the thing. Maguire may be fifth choice centre back. So when you're starting for England,
fifth choice centre back.
Luke Shaw's been starting at centre back.
Yeah.
Everyone, right?
I would start Luke Shaw.
And then you've got Lindelof, which I would put in ahead of Maguire. So if Varane isn't fit, what's the probability that Lindelof isn't going to be fit too? Very small. So it's not just about United, it's about Maguire. Maguire should be asking himself this question. You know, when United against Burnley, he was sick, understood. But he didn't play against Forest either. And you're going, you feel like Ten Hag's made a decision about him. You know, you feel like Ten Hag has turned around. I think after Brentford was the lowest moment. I mean, I've seen some bad performances in United over the years, but Sixty here, I'll never forget. You know, I remember even under Moyes, Olympiacos away, which I'll never forget. There's been so many moments where you felt, you know, the six against Spurs. You know,
but how much would we get for Maguire realistically?
Well, I mean, even it's really at this point when you get new owners, it's really not. If you get 20, 30 million for him, I think that would be. I'd tell you what, I think in the right team, Maguire's well worth 20, 30 million.
I think Maguire's worth 40 million, 50 million in the right team in today's market. What do we pay for him, 80?
Yeah, I mean, look, here's the thing. You could easily get 30, 40 million off a team, in my opinion. If you get 30 million for Maguire, I think that's good business. Right, and there's teams in the bottom half of the table that I think he would improve. You know, teams in the top half of the table, I don't think so. Right, I think one of the things that we're seeing, what we talked about with United before, is they're very reactive rather than proactive, but they're dominating games now. Right, they're controlling games. There's a fear factor coming back inside them where teams are starting to fear playing against them.
And but is this not where we need to strike when the iron's hot? Because
no, I completely agree. I mean, they do. I mean, with United, it's the problem's always been, Colm, is what happens next. They've got to this position before. The issue's always been what happens next. I mean, when you look at the times United have got into the top four, finished second, it's always what happens next that costs them, right? By not sending the right players that they need. I mean, if you look at United's window this summer, it was basically identical to the window that they should have had in 2020. Instead of signing Van de Beek and Cavani and Palestri, those types of players, they didn't sign the players that they should have signed. They should have signed a defensive midfielder. They should have signed a left-footed centre-back. They didn't. Those were two obvious players. They missed out on Jadon Sancho that summer. So the problem for United has always been what happens next, and this is always a part that concerns me. They need a striker in January badly, right? Because we could be sitting 3-4 weeks from now having seen United lose a couple of games. We know that can happen. And United are still going to lose games between now and the end of the season. There's no doubt about that. But what can't be is United can no longer cost themselves that progress because they don't execute properly. If they have to sell a player to get a striker, then do that. Sell Dean Henderson to Forest now to get the money.
I agree, and I mean, if it takes us selling Maguire in January to get a striker in to get that money, absolutely, let's do it. And I think that's the point. Like,
or Elanga, I would sell Elanga if they can get a good offer for him.
I wouldn't sell him just yet. As I said, I would have loaned him out. I would have given him the Ajax in the summer. I think he'd be a really good fit for Ajax, and I think he could come back and be a bit of a player. But again, I wouldn't get rid of him this soon. I think he's still young. What age is Elanga? 20?
Something like 20, 21. I would let him go. Because I think he could be a good player, but is that going to be good enough for United? You see, the question for United isn't anymore are they good? We know they're good. The question is, can they get to that next level? And when you see what Arsenal have done this season, it's not impossible. I mean,
it's not, and it's not even impossible this season. I think I don't want to run before we can walk here, but where we're sitting right now, we're third, right? We're in the same points as Newcastle, but we've got a game in hand over them in third. Now, I'm not saying Newcastle are our competition. People will say they're our competition for top four, right? Arsenal are 9 points ahead of us at the moment, and they've played the same games as us. There's a definite chance Arsenal shit the bed soon. I'd say there's a good chance Arsenal do. Classic Arsenal.
Well, I mean, we've seen this before with Arsenal, and to be honest, I've been thinking that for a while. I know they're doing the Leeds tonight, but I don't see that. I mean, it's possible, but I don't see that. I think that I would still be surprised if they won the league, but then you're looking at everyone else going, who else is showing the consistency to catch them? Because City don't look like. I mean, if you think about City, can you imagine if Ten Hag had Haaland in the team? If Ten Hag had Haaland in the team, United would be sitting on Arsenal's coattails or thereabouts.
Would be 5 points ahead of Arsenal if we had Haaland in that
I
team.
mean, I think about the games United threw away, right? First of all, the derby would have finished differently. I look at that Newcastle game, would have finished differently. I think Brighton would have finished differently. Maybe Brentford would have ended up the same. Right? I think United at home to Brighton that they lost the first game of the season would have been different. But that it's the one thing that United are badly missing, even in games that they've won, where they've eked out a win. Where you're like, if they had a striker, this game would have been so different.
If we fast forward to the summer, and we've spoke about now the stopgaps, João Felix, possibly, maybe, don't know, Giroud, possibly, maybe, don't know, but in the summer, who is the big name strikers that we should be going after? Because you need someone similar to Haaland, and I know there's not that many out there at the moment.
Well, there isn't any. I mean, there's just nobody of that consistency. But I think when you look at what Ten Hag wants down the middle, they're big target men. So I know that that we're still interested in Sesko. But when I asked them about this in October, November, I was around about now. It was before they announced that the football club was going to be up for sale. They had said, look, the only way it would happen in January is if you come out of the summer's budget. So I never expected, if you remember about 2 weeks ago, there were linked with all these players, De Jong, Gakpo and everything, and João Felix and everything, and Enzo Fernandez, which was just insane to me. And I'm looking at the Glazer takeover, and I'm in two minds about whether this will result in spend or not. Because if they spend, if they don't spend, I think that's more of an indication that nothing is really close. Because if they spend 30-40 million on a striker, I mean, that's, like as I've said before, it's around an hour for anyone buying a football club. And the banks will have no problems agreeing to that, knowing that someone's about to buy a football club and that will get paid. But if they don't spend, they've got a bit of a problem. Because there was an Athletic article, and you and I have talked about this on the show before. There was an article in the Athletic yesterday that was saying that some of the interested parties could be easily tempted to let United bleed financially. United cannot afford to finish outside the top four if the football club is not being. It doesn't have serious offers on the table that meet the Glazer valuation. They wouldn't be able to afford the hit that would come from Adidas. That would, the club with 300 million cash in the bank pre-COVID. Now what are they, 24, 25? The ability to pay these debts that are basically $1 billion in debt, right, which is just truly unbelievable. The ability to service that debt when under the current regime is extremely concerning. That will not get serviced properly without a buyout. And United have been maxing that credit card out for a while. So I think if they do spend, that's more of an indication that something's close rather than not.
If I asked you now, do you think that United will be sold mid-season or before the end of the season? What do you think?
I think yes.
Do you think there's a possibility that it could happen in January?
Not January. It doesn't happen that fast. But I think by March, April, I think United have legitimate offers on the table, legitimate interested parties.
So for the listeners of the podcast, what do you know about the Qataris, and do you think that there's a good possibility that they're
I have to be very careful about what I say on this because I'm not authorised to say everything on this. But obviously, during this process, I speak to people that know what's going on. And I was told about this just before Christmas. It was during the World Cup, actually, that Beckham and the Qataris were showing interest in United. But they're not alone. I don't know about the geopolitics of that with owning PSG and who exactly he's talking to in Qatar. But I'm trying to choose my words really carefully here. There's obviously interest in United.
What's Beckham's involvement?
Well, I mean, obviously he knows the football club really, really well. He knows the people at the football club, so he's an intermediary. So, from what I'm being told, he's acting as an intermediary. He is part of the individual. I mean, Gary Neville was involved too, not with the Qataris, but I want to be careful about what I'm saying here.
I'm like Piers Morgan here, but is it private investment or is it state owned?
I don't know the source of the money, and that's what I'm saying. I don't know who's fronting the bid from Qatar or fronting that interest. I don't know. I would imagine it's coming from the ruling class. It's hard to imagine that there's a number of people running about with that type of money.
And
but
do you think this is a good move for United?
I think it's a good move from United if the source of the money comes from people that are entirely ethical.
And if they're unethical, would you not support that then?
Here's the thing. I'm a hypocrite, right? A flagrant hypocrite. I'm a United fan, and I found it very difficult to divorce myself from that based on my own ethics. It wouldn't be something that would sit well with me, and it's very sad that we live in a world where it's really difficult to have a reasonable expectation that the football club will be owned by ethical individuals because of the price. And there's degrees of not everyone. I know it's people employ whataboutery. What about this? What about that? And some of it's legit. But there are varying degrees of pernicious owners who, based on what they're based on their ethics, some are worse than others. If you ask me what I would like to see, ideally I'd like to see Jim Ratcliffe own the football club, because I think...
Could this be a case though that before you get on to Jim Ratcliffe, that this is one of those situations where the grass isn't always greener on the other side, and whilst for fans looking from the outside right now, of course we want the Glazers out, of course that's the main aim, but once they get out, could this ever be worse? Or from an ethical standpoint, do you think it'll just be worse?
I don't think it'll be worse from in terms of what it means for Manchester United, in terms of their ability to compete, in terms of how the football club gets run, all that there. I mean, I don't think it would be worse that way. But obviously they're worse individuals. I mean,
yeah, but does that then have a knock-on effect on our commercial ability in terms of Manchester United?
No.
Being alongside human rights abuse, sports watching, all these things.
I mean, it should, but it won't. Because all these major brands, I mean, they're in bed with these people anyway. I mean, take a look at the World Cup. Did it affect the World Cup?
Did you watch the World Cup, by the way? We had this debate. So
no, I watched it.
You are a flagrant hypocrite.
But here's the thing, right?
At least you were honest.
Yes, no, I'm a hypocrite, there's no doubt, but I'm not profiting off it, right?
Yeah.
I'm not using it for personal gain, right? And this is the dilemma that no football fan should have to face. Do I continue to support my football club despite the fact that it's owned by people I despise? It's a difficult divorce, and it's up to each individual to decide that for themselves.
Is there a chance Jim Ratcliffe comes though?
Well, hold on. When I support United, I don't support the owners. Right? And one of the things that I've never understood about City fans or anyone else is they can never divorce themselves from that. They don't understand the difference between criticising the club and criticising the owners. United fans have always criticised their owners. City fans can't do that, and I don't know why. I don't know why they can't, or other football clubs that are owned by despots who can't turn around and say the owners are not the football club. When United win trophies, I'm not celebrating at the Glazers or winning a cash windfall. You know, I will celebrate their downfall, but never their success, because I'll never forgive what they've done to the football club. So, but, you know, I'm a human being. I'm probably wrong about everything. You know, bad reasoning, bad information, bad knowledge, bad everything. So, have the humility to accept it. And I'm not telling anyone else how they should feel. I'm just saying that this is my view, that I really wish it would be owned by someone like Jim Ratcliffe. I don't see Jim Ratcliffe happening because I just think the price is going to get too ridiculous. I mean, the appraisal value of United versus what the Glazers are asking is ridiculous. And they are finding it difficult because of how parsimonious they have been, where now they're paying a price for that when in how they're trying to sell the football club, because the billion debt. Then you're talking about a stadium, which is $1.5 billion, right? Then what it's going to take to compete on the field. Then what it's going to take to buy the football club. I'm going to tell you this, about Qataris and about Saudis and everything. They're not idiots. They're not just going to hand Westerners a bunch of money because they think they're easy, you know. So it won't be, I know what just happened with Ronaldo is totally insane in the numbers, and I don't agree with a lot of the criticism that's come his way, by the way. But I remember speaking to Woodward about Di Maria going to PSG, and one of the things that he had said to me was how difficult negotiations were in that whole transaction, because I was under the impression the Qataris would just throw money in it for Di Maria, and it's absolutely not. It was extremely difficult negotiations. They're not what you think. They're not people that just throw money about because they can. So I would say that United will get sold by the end of the first quarter. Look, the Glazers have been trying to raise money, raise investment for years. They wanted to buy out Joel and Avram Glazer wanted to buy out the family for a year. That's why they met with Apollo. This is in the Athletic article as well, to try to raise the money to buy them out. So there's no prospect of them getting investment without a viewed full ownership of the football club. That won't happen.
For a prospective owner, is the priority the stadium, or is the priority the on the pitch?
No, first on the pitch. I mean, without a doubt. I mean, there's loads of great football clubs around the world that play.
Realistically, though, if we look at this team, it doesn't really need all that much investment. We're not talking about when City it first happened and you have to fire all this money into the team, because that isn't needed at the moment. Like, I mean, yes, we need a good striker. We probably need one or two more squad players. Other than that, there should be a real focus on the stadium. The stadium needs to be sorted.
Yeah, there's no question. But Manchester United, first and foremost, are a football team. And there's been loads of teams that play in shithole stadiums. I mean, take a look at Spurs. I mean, Arsenal played in this beautiful Emirates Stadium that was supposed to be, once they got into the Emirates, this was going to provide them with the resources to compete. Well, it never happened, and the Arsenal fans have been notoriously unhappy sitting in these comfortable seats. So first and foremost, your responsibilities to the football team, but good owners invest in infrastructure, because they have a legitimate intent to leave something behind that's better than what they inherited. The Glazers are not doing that. They're not leaving something behind in better shape than what they inherited. The opposite. So I do think that is a very important aspect. You need to have to upgrade their facilities for commercial reasons. Old Trafford has to be able to compete with, for example, the Etihad, not just for football reasons, for concert reasons and everything else. There's no doubt about that. So I think whoever does buy it's obviously something that's going to have to be addressed. The stadium needs a lot of investment.
So going back to January, do you think we'll make any signings?
Yeah, I think United will still bring in a striker.
On loan?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be anything. That, I mean, Ten Hag has turned around and said, whoever comes in has to be someone that is make an impact on the first team. It can't be just someone that to make up the numbers. That makes it a bit difficult for United, because there aren't many strikers about that are available that are capable of coming in and making a big improvement on what they have. But I think the fact that he what's difficult for United, I think United would prefer that he wasn't coming out saying that in the media. But Ten Hag now, as we've seen with Ronaldo, has the ear of United fans. It's his football club now, and there's no leverage to leak behind his back like they did with Ranić and others to undermine him, because they have to support everything that he says, because he's been right about everything. I just don't think United have the ability anymore. And I said this in the summer, that they don't have the money to compete anymore with the top teams. That's evident. And I think that the Glazers won't really care about the consequences if they feel like the club's going to be sold in the near future. But that's not a certainty. There's still an awful lot needs to happen for United to be sold. Just beating the club up for sale is one part of it. Now the other part comes with getting legitimate offers that meet your valuation.
I
So
see. I
they
see a
have
comment
to.
there.
They can't ignore that.
I see a comment there saying like a Henrik Larsson type signing. That is exactly what we need. Remember when Larsson came in? Like honestly, unbelievable. That's the type of signing that we do need short term, and then something bigger in the summer. And I agree with Steve Doyle where he says midfield we need a box to box player definitely. Right back, 100% we need another right back. I think Wan-Bissaka ultimately probably will leave within the next year. I'd say probably in the summer he'll leave. And yeah, we're going to need another goalkeeper, and obviously if Maguire leaves, we'll need a centre back. So I agree with that as well. To be fair.
No, completely agree. And I think United. This is partly what I'm talking about. When yes, United might only need a striker right now, but come the summer, it won't just be a striker. The squad and what it needs is fluid. So you constantly need to invest. United don't have a lot of depth. They need to bring in a lot more depth, in my opinion. They need to bring in 3 or 4 younger players that are capable of playing in the first team, like a Julian Alvarez, like a Fofana that was just bought by Chelsea. Players that are capable of coming in and making an impact. I wouldn't recall Ahmad. I would leave him at Sunderland because I think he's in a good place, and United don't really have a need in the positions that he plays. So I would leave him where he is.
And I also don't think he's ready for the Premier League yet. To be perfectly honest, it's all well and good doing it there, but the Premier League it's a different level altogether.
Well, the question is, will he develop more 6 months play every week for Sunderland, or will he develop more in the next 6 months being a bit part player for United? And I think it's better to leave him where he is.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, I think, and it's good to see him finally finding that rhythm and form. And this reminds me a bit of James Garner. If you get the wrong loan, it can make you look a bad player. It can almost cost you your career. Once James Garner left Swansea, went to Forest, he showed that he was a very, very capable player. He's in a terrible football club right now, of course. But
But I think it'd be good to see Garnacho maybe out on loan for a while because again, is he developing at the right level, being a bit part player at United? Because he's not going to start every week. He's not going to come on every week. Would
well, I
it be
think
good to
he's
see him
getting
out on
enough
loan?
games right now.
Palestri's another one.
Palestri's baffling to me. This is a kid that's good enough to play in the World Cup for Uruguay, but clearly Ten Hag doesn't rate him, or he would be.
Well, no one has really rated him, to be honest. Any manager we've had haven't rated him.
Well, he was recommended by Diego Forlan to United, and they liked him. I think it hasn't had trim. I mean, we just talked about getting the right loan, how important that is for a young player's development. He needs to get regular football, maybe a championship football club, where one of two things happens. He either shows the ability that someone else would sign him, or he shows the ability that forces his way into the United team. But you said something earlier which I think is really important. Ten Hag now managing the under-23s. So there'll be no players recommended to Ten Hag. He will be able to make that evaluation himself. And I think for those younger players that are, if Palestri's at playing for the under-23s, you can legitimately impress in that team and force you into the first team whenever you've got Ten Hag managing it and you're not relying on other people saying this kid's doing well, take a look at him, this kid's doing well, take a look at him. I think if you're a player at United, you can't ask for a better atmosphere than what you're getting right now, and a better manager that will give you a chance. So I think for Palestri and a number of players, this really is they're out of excuses. We heard this before. Gary Neville say that when Solskjaer came in, but this really is true. They are completely out of excuses, and I think the players that infested the place last season, some are gone and some will be gone. I honestly think that virus that spread through United last season, where the atmosphere inside the football club was horrible. Players were fighting with each other, staff were fighting with each other. I still think that's affected Jadon Sancho.
Definitely.
But
I think another one,
coach.
sorry, before we come off the loans is Ethan Galbraith out on loan at Salford, who is absolutely ripping it up every week. I mean, the kid's been playing right back, holding midfield, in the hole, and he is 9-10 performance every single week, and that's a player that I'd like to see back at United under Ten Hag in the 23s to see if he can break his way in.
Very possible. Ethan Laird as well. So very possible
too, yeah.
if one of those young kids could come back. I wanted to also take a look at these games coming up because obviously when you look at United's Christmas festive period, these were games they should win. Now we've been here before where they should win and they don't win games. I feel that United are in a much better position with City at Old Trafford than what they were when they played City away. Like I felt that game came a bit too soon for them. I can't remember the last time I've gone into a derby with that much confidence.
I feel exactly the same. I mean, if we were going up against City away from home, I would say there's a possibility, you know, I'd be happy with a draw. I 100% want us to win. I expect us to win. The football we're playing at the minute is deserving of us to go out and get 3 points against City at home. And I haven't felt like that for a long time as a United fan.
Well, that's the next league game, so they've Everton and Charlton in the FA Cup.
With Everton on Friday.
Everton in the FA Cup and then Charlton in the League Cup. I expect they will win both those games. I mean, they will be flying by the time they get to Man City. United could easily be sitting there 8 games in since the World Cup, no goals conceded. That's unbelievable.
But that's a tough back-to-back because you've got City at home and then you've Arsenal away. And, I mean, if you come out of that with 4 or 6 points, we're in a very, very good position.
Yeah, I think if United can take 4 points from City and Arsenal away, I would strongly fancy them to finish top 4. I think they will finish top 4.
I'm confident we'll finish top 3, to be honest.
Well, when I look at all teams I've seen this season, outside of Arsenal, I think United are as good as anybody. I mean, in terms of their form, maybe not in terms of depth. I mean, since the Brentford game, Ten Hag's picked up more points than Guardiola.
Crazy statistic, and to be honest, I wouldn't have known that if you hadn't said, and that's something that isn't talked about enough because that's unbelievable where we're at and where we've came from. Just a point I want to make before I forget, you mentioned the Charlton game there. I have 2 tickets for anyone listening and I want to give it to someone that's deserving of it for free. So if you know someone who maybe wouldn't normally have a chance to get to a game, message me or Phil on Twitter and I'll set it up to get them 2 tickets to the game because I want to give it to someone that maybe wouldn't normally have a chance to go and I'd forget if I didn't say so.
Sounds a plan, mate. Well done and scalping a few stolen tickets, mate. Absolutely.
A few stolen tickets, get rid of them, perfect. Hopefully United aren't listening, by the way.
If a real owner contacts you, Colm didn't give them to you. Anyway, with regards to the Arsenal game, what do you expect from it?
What do I expect from us against Arsenal? I think that game sets a precedent for the rest of the season. I think it's all about how Ten Hag lines up against Arsenal because Arsenal have the ability to rip us to shreds, but at the same time we have the ability to rip Arsenal to shreds. So it's whoever strikes first. Honestly, I don't know. I could see that game being a high-scoring draw, and I hope I'm wrong. Hopefully we steal that and get 3 points, but that's a very tough game. That's much tougher than the City game, in my opinion.
Well, you need to have City at home. And I think that game is going to be crucial to what happens in the Arsenal game. If you need to get beat at home against Man City, it's going to heavily affect their confidence. That there are still doubts about whether they're capable of winning the league, whether they can still beat the top teams. If they beat City at Old Trafford, and say you need to beat them, you know, in the way they beat Liverpool, or the way they beat Arsenal, I would fancy them to go to Arsenal and get something.
I would love to see it. I think this is the most confident I've been going into games. I said this to you before the break. There was points at last season I was dreading watching games. Dreading United coming on next. Couldn't wait for international breaks. It's completely different now.
Stat there from Larry Healy. Here's a stat: 25 games, no United manager has more wins since Busby. That's unbelievable.
Wow.
I think you also have to accept, you have to scale that with what he came in and inherited. You know, and how bad United were, and how he's reacted to every setback. The solution to every problem has been correct. You know, I think that's amazing.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, what's back 4 coming up? Maguire looked great tonight. Yes, he did. Let me get some of your comments against. Well, he looked okay tonight, I must say. Against both Arsenal and City, we didn't have Casemiro. It's a good point. Yes, I have to say, you know, as much as De Bruyne is a genius, no question about it. Casemiro is someone that doesn't get enough credit from me. Doesn't get lauded in the same way De Bruyne would. honestly probably the best midfielder I've seen at United maybe since Keane and Robson.
Casemiro.
You know, Scholes was brilliant. Beckham, you know, he's a better midfielder than Beckham. Scholes to me is a different type of player, right? But Casemiro, I look at him and going, how many midfielders would I swap him for? And I know I've just done what I criticised myself for, about everything has to be the best ever. But his impact on transforming United is almost Cantona-esque.
Really is. I mean, he's just been phenomenal since he came in. I can't remember a bad game. You referenced the Everton one before that. Can't see it.
Well, I don't
even think he had an average game. He looked good. He was only just in the side.
I think that was his first. He'd come on as a sub in his first game. Was it Leicester away? I think. I can't remember. Wasn't great. Which
Leicester away.
understandable.
Did he play in that game?
Understandable. And then, of course, first game was Everton, where he started. And he had an indifferent game. I think he set up one of the goals, but he gave a ball away quite a bit. After that, he's been perfect. But I remember after that Everton game, people criticising him, saying that he wasn't good enough and all that. Unbelievable. But anyway, so much to be positive about right now. And very, very encouraging where United are at. Hopefully they get a striker in before the end of the window. Delighted to be back recording this 2023. I want to say a massive thank you to all of you for supporting the podcast throughout the year. We'll be bringing you more information and news as we get it. We'll be back again next week. And I want to say a big thanks to you, Colm, for sticking with me throughout the year, mate. Much appreciated.
Yes, mate. Thanks a million. Back again soon, people. Appreciate
Cheers, folks. See ya. Bye.
See you, mate.